The greenhouse effect is a naturally occurring effect that warms a planet. It's like it's called a greenhouse effect because it's like a greenhouse that you keep plants in. As the sunlight comes down, the panels allow the visible light to pass through, and then it hits an object inside, say this plant, and it warms up the plant. And that plant releases heat in infrared. It changes. Remember back to when we were talking about light. You can change from one to another. The sunlight hits the plant, makes the atoms within the plant start to jiggle a little bit faster, and it re-releases the energy as infrared, or heat that you can feel. Well, that heat tries to rise, but now it's trapped by these panes of glass and gets trapped inside the greenhouse and keeps it nice and warm. During the wintertime, people will move their plants inside the greenhouses to protect them. Keeps the heat energy inside a little bit more efficiently so that the plants don't die, and allows them to bloom a little quicker when it comes springtime when they want to sell their plants. Same thing happens here on Earth, where instead of having glass around us, we have an atmosphere. And in this atmosphere, there are certain gases in there that are called greenhouse gases. Number one up there is CO2, carbon dioxide, the same stuff you breathe out of your mouth. H2O, we have water vapor. It's not, well, there is liquid water up there as well, but water vapor is the greenhouse gas. And then we have another one, CH4 is methane. All right, it's the stuff that it's, if you've ever been like in a swamp area, it's where vegetation is breaking down and decaying. It's got a bad smell to it a little bit. These are the three main greenhouse gases. And what happens is, as the sunlight comes through, things like carbon dioxide and water vapor, it allows visible light to pass through it easily. If you breathe in out of your mouth, you have not only carbon dioxide, you have water vapor coming out of your mouth as well. The light easily passes through the stuff you're breathing out of your mouth. You can see, easily. If you breathe out of your mouth, you can't see it. The light passes through it easily. However, what happens with infrared, when it hits the earth and warms it up, as the infrared starts to go back out, just like in the greenhouse, it traps it. It holds it in, and it warms up the planet a little bit. That's why it's called a greenhouse. It's like a blanket that covers the earth and warms us up. We've seen on some planets like Mercury that doesn't have an atmosphere. Even though Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, on the daytime side it gets really hot, but on the nighttime side it cools down. It radiates that energy away, and so it'll be like 250 degrees Fahrenheit on the daytime side. It'll be negative 250 degrees on the nighttime side. On Earth, it traps that heat, and so luckily for us, when we go to nighttime, we don't plummet to negative 250 degrees. That heat is trapped as we go from the daytime to the nighttime side, and so the temperature might drop like 20 degrees, 25 degrees between daytime and nighttime, the highs and lows, but it doesn't plummet to negative 250, so it keeps us alive, really. The greenhouse effect is important for life here on Earth. Sometimes the greenhouse effect can go too far, like on Venus. Venus, of course, is the hottest planet. And Venus has 96% carbon dioxide in its atmosphere, which is that CO2, one of those greenhouse gases. And because of that, Venus is really good at trapping those greenhouse gases, and that's why it is the hottest planet. This is also something we need to be concerned about, this CO2, because this is a byproduct when we burn fossil fuels. And so right now, we're emitting a lot of CO2 into our atmosphere, and this is what our concern is that we need the greenhouse effect. It's good for us, but we can go too far with it. We can have too much CO2, and we don't want to end up like Venus, where it becomes too hot. We're trapping too much heat as that blanket covers the Earth, and that's going to cause problems in itself. So too much of a good thing can absolutely be a bad thing as well.